we are now at the point where we're going to start a sketch. So we're in this, we've opened up SolidWorks, we've started a part file, we've clicked on the sketch tab, and we've activated the sketch button, making sure that we're not doing a 2D sketch. If you did this, okay, notice it's then be not much different here, but your cursor will be different. So there's a little bit of difference in the way it's set up. If you feel like you're in the wrong one, you can right click or hit enter and just kick out of it and go back in, okay? But make sure you're on that 2D sketch, so important. All right, I'm gonna just wait for a minute, make sure everybody gets here. Again, we've opened up SolidWorks, we've started a part file, and we've clicked on the sketch tab and then the sketch button, making sure we're in a 2D sketch. I'll wait just a minute here. And maybe we'll get some fancier tech this way. This is kind of cool. And if any of you do have a question, make sure the instructor there is aware, and we can get that put into the chat so that I can respond to those questions. Because I imagine it'll be a little tricky, but you guys are brilliant, and we'll make this work. Online students, are any of you, let's see, Aiden or Griffin, do you guys have SolidWorks installed yet?
No, I'm trying to get it installed right now.
Okay, it'll go pretty slow while you're on Zoom because your bandwidth's gonna be kind of taken, but don't rush it, okay? And don't feel like you have pressure right now because you don't have a Zoom SolidWorks drawing due this week. So you're okay. Aiden, how are you doing? I think I've lost Aiden. He's gone back to bed. Aiden, online. Okay. Thanks, Aiden. Aiden's using chat. Okay. All right. Did everybody get to this part of the screen? Are we good to go? Ready for the next step? Okay, while we're getting you there, if you take your cursor and you are making sure you're in the 2D sketch here, and I just clicked off it again. Notice that when you move your cursor over these drawing planes, you have a front plane, a right side plane, and a top plane. Now, the front plane is also the back plane. The right plane is the left plane, and the top plane is the bottom plane. Now, notice how they highlight when you move around them, so knows which one you're drawing on. You want to pay attention to where you're at and how that works. The intersection of the three planes is 0, 0, 0. That's your origin point that we spent so much time last week talking about. Now we're going to redo that base drawing. Okay, we're going to do it a little differently than what we did before. And that's why I want to make sure we're all on the same thought process here. So while we're looking across here, you'll notice there's some icons that are within inside of your drawing area. So the first one here, if you float over to zoom to fit. So rather than doing your scroll button a lot, which still works as a zoom feature, by the way, you can use these icons to affect your drawing view. So you have zoom to fit, you have zoom to an area, so you drag a window around it. You have zoom previous, and then these get kind of fun when we get going a little further. Maybe we'll get to that point today. Not quite sure we'll get that far, but we'll see. There's a section view, so you can cut your model in half, and so you can see if it's hollow inside or if you want to change the nature of that. There's a dynamic and annotated views. So if you like a view and you want to come back to it, you can save it and then name it so you can recover it. We have a view orientation cube, which we'll look at really, really carefully once we get our first model drawn. You have a display style. You have a hide types. So certain things you can make remove from your drawing. We have the appearance, which is where you put color. So maybe you want to make your base part actually metal, we can apply a material so it is metal. And then we get into a scene, which is a background. And then the last one here is your view settings. And there's quite a bit of like ambience and cartooning, and cartoon's new, and I have perspective. Don't click on anything in these yet, but know that they're there. We'll be bouncing around them as we go. All righty. So open up SolidWorks, start a part file, clicked on the sketch tab, clicked on the sketch button. Are we good to go forward and start drawing? A little bit of an answer, and then we'll go. I'm hoping we can maybe somehow get a camera that can see that. Everything good? All right, I think before we are. Okay, here we go. Now that you have your sketch active and you're ready to go, we need to choose where we're going to draw. We drew the front of that base, which is actually the top of the bottom. It's kind of a weird thing. So I want you to come put your cursor on the top plane. It's in a highlight with a kind of an orange outline to it. We're going to work on the top plane of this. That's going to keep our base oriented in the way it will be with the final assembly. So once you left click on the top plane, it's going to come and face you. And then you get your origin. So now we have an origin of our screen. Just like we had in AutoCAD, we have our origin. If you put your cursor where those two arrows start, there's an orange dot. That is 0, 0, 0. All right, now, let's go ahead and use your mouse a little bit. If you do your scroll bar, the zooming is a little different on this. The roll button still zooms in and out, but it bases on wherever your cursor is. So we're then just be aware of that. It'll be more apparent as we get drawing. So we need to draw something. So we know where origin is. There, it's right point there. Why don't you go up to the line tool, and L is line, just like in AutoCAD. So nothing really new there. So click on the line tool, and notice your cursor is now a pencil. So we're in that mindset of drawing as we go. Bring your cursor down and find that dot. I'm going to start right on the origin point. So when we click on that origin point, we are now, just like in AutoCAD, ready to draw a line. Now in AutoCAD, I'd have you press F8 to keep your line straight. But if you bring your line going up, notice there's a yellow box now with a black line in it. That means that this line is perfectly vertical, and we're good to draw there. We don't have to worry about an F8 key to make it lock down. And notice it's also giving us the length of the line and a comma and its angle. So that on-the-fly data for every line is always going to be there. If we were to go horizontal, we would get the same thing, except now our yellow box has a horizontal black line, letting us know we're drawing a horizontal line. Okay, now that's just two ways of making sure our lines are straight. There are a whole bunch of others, and we'll try and get into as many of those today as we possibly can. So what I'm wanting you to do now is I would like you to take and draw straight up, and we're not going to worry about any size whatsoever. You're just going to draw a line of any length and left click. Then I want you to draw a line. Now notice you can get a line that will show you when you're at 45 degrees. In this case, it's reading 135 because it reads counterclockwise. Draw a line at an angle other than 135. So do not do 135, so just any angle. Then draw a little horizontal line and draw it down. If it's not straight, don't worry about it. Then draw a line over, draw a line up, give another little line, give another angle. Oh, let's bring a line down, and then go ahead and connect it back to home. So just make a shape. As soon as you connect those lines, and whatever this shape is fine. We're going to fix it. Okay, so I've got lines that should be horizontal that are not. I've got lines that should be vertical that are not. Everything starts and ends at the origin point. But once I complete a perimeter, once I create a perimeter, it shades in. This is what can now become a 3D model. Now we have to talk about some things we can do with these lines. Okay, to get out of the line command, you can right click and hit select, or you can turn off the tab, or you can hit the enter key. So you can either right click and select, click back on the line icon, or just hit enter and go ahead and get out of the line command once you finish this shape. So then finish that. It's kind of like the base, but not really. We know we've got the lines are there, none of the sizes, none of the constraints. And I'm gonna wait right here a minute and let everybody get to that point. Don't worry about it being exact. What you do need to have is you need to have the 3 lines that form the bottom. You need to have the 3 lines that form each of these ear pieces. These little widgets come out, and 1 horizontal. So we got 6, 9, you should have 10 lines drawn. Okay, and do make sure the last line does go back to your first. Okay. Now, to delete a line is just like in AutoCAD. If you make a mistake, take your cursor without a command being active, select the line. You can right click and hit delete, or you can hit the delete key on your keyboard. Oh, now as soon as that line goes, notice it's not a potential 3D model anymore. I have to come back and draw the line back in. I can bring that. Let's say I didn't have lines that connect. Let's say this is what you did, that your end points are not all congruent, meaning they all go around. If that's the case, again, no line command. There are grips in SolidWorks as well. Grab the endpoint and move it to where you want it. You can grab that grip and put it right where you need it to be, okay? So if things get astray, and they don't quite go the way you want them to, fix it. It's always good. Okay, so now once you've got a shape and it's shaded in, and you know what that tells you is you don't have any overlapping lines, you don't have any gaps between the lines, because you cannot extrude an object, and extrude means to make it 3D. We cannot do that unless it's shaded in. All right, but we need to put some parameters to this and make it right, okay? Now, one thing to see on your drawing is when a line has what's called a constraint. So there used to be a TV show called Dudley Do-Right, and he had a villain called Snidely Whiplash, and Snidely Whiplash would always go and get Dudley Do-Right's girlfriend and tie her to a track, a railroad track. And then Dudley Do-Right had to save her from being run over by a train. So she was constrained, meaning tied up, so she couldn't get off of the railroad tracks. But if you watch the cartoon, all she had to do is roll over and she'd be fine. But that's beside the point. A constraint holds a line or an object in a position so that we can have trust that it's precise. So if a line is black, and on this drum, let me zoom up a little bit, I've got blue lines and I've got one black line. The first line you drew is most likely black. And that means that that line is fully constrained. It has a length, it's going vertical. This green line now, we saw it with yellow when we were drawing the line, has a vertical line that says this line is perfectly vertical. In the same respect, this line is perfectly horizontal, but it is not fully constrained because it's still blue. And I need to get all of my lines to black. That's my goal. I want all my lines to be black. So I need to add different constraints. So now you can see it gets big span. So I know this line and this line are horizontal, and they both show that. This line's vertical and this one's vertical. Yours might not be. So what we're going to do is going to start here at the first line. And if it's, I'm going to mess it up here a little bit. Well, kind of. I'm going to take that line, and if you float over a constraint and you right click, you can see there's some options in here. Look down here, we can see fully defined sketch. We can see delete relationships. We can delete that relationship right here. It's a vertical one, and I'm just going to delete it. Okay, once that's gone, and I'm doing this to make a point, if I grab that, I can now stretch it, and I can change the nature of my shape. Where this one still has that constraint, I can only change its position, but not its verticality. It has to stay vertical. Okay. Now, what I want you to do is when I click on a single line, if your line is already constrained correctly, you're good. I want this line to be vertical again. It was, and I took it off. So once I select the line, I look on the left side panel, and there's a vertical and a horizontal constraint. There's also a big giant anchor point. That anchor point locks the line so you cannot move it. And occasionally somebody will do that and they'll forget they've locked it and they can't figure out why their drawing won't move to where they need it to. So just be aware of that fixed one. I rarely use it because once an object's fully constrained and all my lines are black, I don't need to have it fixed. It can be what it wants to be. So I want to just force this vertical again. So I just select the vertical box here on the left, and my line's vertical. Now notice what's going on over here. I've got crossing lines. I'm not going to worry about that yet. I'm going to start with one line and work them around until I get where I want them. So I'm going to do all of my vertical and my horizontals first. Okay. So next line is the one is, I'm going to go down the bottom one because it's, hopefully I'll pull this apart. This bottom line is definitely not horizontal. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to select the horizontal constraint. That's getting worse. That's okay. Don't worry about it. The next line is, I also want this line here that I've got right orange. This one needs to be horizontal. Notice I've got two black lines now. So things are getting better. So I want this line to also have horizontal. And if you have it already horizontal, then you're good. Okay, so now that one's horizontal. Okay, now the rest of these, because there's angle lines involved, I'm not going to go and mess with those, but I do want to fix anything that's all tied up in a knot. Okay. Now, if things get tied up in a knot, again, we wait until we have a little bit more that's kind of conforming a little bit. If I grab this joint, this connector right here, and I'll zoom up on it. So I know this endpoint needs to go to this side so that I have the shape of my base drawing that we spent so much time drawing. If I grab that corner and just drag it over, notice I can untwist and I get my shaded area back. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna slide this over so it's not twisted anymore. The angle is not even close to the same anymore. I do have another line here that should be vertical. So I'm gonna select this line and make that one vertical. Okay. So now my shape is nothing like what it started as, but it's not quite what I want yet. So let's take a look and kind of review. I have a bottom line that's horizontal, two side lines that are vertical, and I have three lines across the top that are horizontal, and the two innermost are vertical. So I want to take a minute and just verify that you have those constraints in place. Now, there's a lot of different constraints. And so if I go up to the top of my screen right now, I've got this display, delete, and delete relationships. There are lots of relationships that you can add to something. And as we go, we'll add some of those. like you can make sure that the corner is always 90 degrees by forcing it to be perpendicular. We can force lines to always be parallel. And we'll then do quite a bit of that with the next few drawings we do. We're going to be spending quite a bit of time here for the next few days using SolidWorks. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move to the next step unless I get a flag that we need to wait just a minute. I know it's an awful lot. Again, when I drew this, I didn't worry about the shape. I had 10 lines. And as long as I have 10 distinct lines, I can make whatever I want out of that. But I need to have each of the edges. And then I'm going to add those constraints as we go. All right, I'm going to check and see if we're good on there. Okay, now when we were doing our drawing in AutoCAD, we had to put in all of the sizes as we went. When you put a dimension or a size, that's also a constraint. Let's see if we have a question or two before we jump forward. So dimension is also a constraint that keeps us in place. So Wyatt, on your question, when you click on a line and it's not giving you this option here, make sure you don't have lines still on, because if you do, it won't give you that. So you have to, you can hit the escape key and get out of the command, or right click and hit select so that you're not in the line command anymore. So kind of keep your eye up here. So if I look at where my line icon is, the top, when that's on, it's grayed in. And then if I select a line, it wants me to draw on that line. And so I have to fight that a little bit. If I turn that off, and you can do either escape or right click and select, then you should be able to pick that line, even if it is already constrained. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and show you this now. I was gonna show this a little bit later, but if you try and put a constraint on a line that's already constrained, so this one's vertical, if I try to make it horizontal too, it's gonna give me a red and a yellow warning. The yellow is the one that it should be, and the red is the one it shouldn't be. So then I can just right click and delete the one that's wrong. Alex wants to know how to get rid of the funnel. Oh, you got a filter. Yay, you. I'm so glad you filtered. All right. This will be a little tricky. Filtering shows up when you've clicked on things you didn't know you were clicking on. All right, so let's see if we can figure out the easiest way to do this. So go ahead and Alex, if you'll right click and go into recent commands, and you have to, this will be a little tricky. Does it show a funnel in that area? Under recent, Alex is, oh, you just restarted your computer. Did you get rid of the funnel? The filter funnel? Okay. Some things that will cause a filter to show up will often, if you click around in the eyeball area, it's kind of like when you get dust in your eye and you just keep poking at it until it gets bad. So a lot of these are filters here, and that's why we'll kind of get those a little later. While I was trying to right click, I screwed my drawing up. Look at my icon in the lower left corner here. I'm not squared up with the top view anymore. So I might as well show you this too, because some of you then click your mouse button and roll your 3D object around, and you'll be lost. You won't know where you are anymore, and you'll panic, and then you do something else. Now you're more lost. Okay. So we looked at these little guys up here across the top. I want you to find this one right in the middle. It's view orientation. In fact, I'd like all of you to go ahead and push your roller button in on your mouse and roll your 3D drawing around. Just flap it in the wind. Do whatever you want with it. Just get it rolled around so you know how to fix this. So fixing your drawing is one of those things that we don't anticipate needing to do until we need to do it. And this is a good time to figure out how to troubleshoot while we're 15.4 miles apart. All right, so we're gonna go up here to the view orientation cube, And if you don't know which one they are, if you just float over, just like in AutoCAD, you get a little help tag that flies out so you can see what the commands are. You want view orientation, and you want to hit the down arrow. Okay, now in here, there's a cube, and I don't use the cube because it's a little confusing. Let me show you what that looks like. If you turn the cube on, you have this box around, but they're not labeled. Okay, so you can kind of see that when you float, you get a little preview what they are. And you can click one, and that'll move you around. I prefer not to use that. That's just a preference. I rather use these guys right here. So if I'm looking at these little boxes in the middle of my screen now, and we will talk about the other stuff at a later date, but there's 6 boxes here. Every object has 6 sides. So I have a top, I have a left, there's a bottom, there's a front, there's a right, there's a back. If I click on the top view, I'm now back to where I was, and everything's right where I left off. Now, my icons are a little messed up here in this area, but on my drawing, they're fine. And what that means, I'm probably looking at this in the bottom view because of the way I rolled it. So I flip that around, and there's bottom, there's top, there's my front. Okay, so just kind of go through those. It's a little easier to understand where you're at if you think about 6 sides of an object, okay? And that's a really good thing to do. Okay, now when we did our drawing, I know that this side and this side are exactly the same length, okay? They're both 2.5 inches. So let's go ahead and do a smart dimension now. I'm gonna set the size of the left vertical line. So what I'm going to look at here is up by where your sketch feature is. Notice it says exit sketch now. Don't exit your sketch yet. We want to stay in it. We also have, here is your drawing structure tree. And right now we're in sketch 1. You want to keep that. Now, if you've started over, you erased and start over, you might be on sketch 2 or 3 by now already. You want to keep the number of sketches as minimal as you can. And we'll worry about that as we go. If that's all messed up, we'll get it fixed. It's not any bad. But there's a big button that says Smart Dimension. And it works just like the dimension we did in AutoCAD. So go ahead and activate your Smart Dimension, except it's easier. I don't have to pick, I can go ahead and pick 1 point, 2 points, and do that. That's boring. I'm going to escape out of that. You can practice that. If you don't like what you're doing, hit escape. It'll kick you out of the command. Then go back to the command. I can just pick the line. I can just pick a line. It knows where the endpoints are. It's built into the program. So this one's showing 7.5, basically. Well, it's not what I want. But once I left click again, so left click to pick the line, left click to place the dimension, now it's gonna let me change it. So I can type in 2.5. Now you just hit enter. And the whole drawing's scale perception changes so that this line is now 2.5 and the proportioning has stayed the same. It's a pretty amazing tool. So here's your dimension settings on the side. We'll get into those much later. But I just want that 2.5 there. That's the only one I need. Then they're right click and I make sure everything's there. So this is where you'll probably find your filters if you get into those. Yeah, all these sketch entities are here. So if you get into this area, you could easily filter out. The escape key is how you get out of it, just to escape. And if you're done with your sketching, there's a green check mark here. And there should be a big green over here in the top right. So if I hit the green check mark, that means I'm done. If I hit this mark here, it means I'm done. And I'm good. Now that closed my sketch. So I'm going to show you this. If you close out your sketch, Notice my lines are gray. Gray means you're not in a current layer to draw on, just like in AutoCAD. So we call them sketches. And when you get out of a layer, you've got to get back in to finish your drawing. Well, I can start a new, if I hit sketch again, it's going to be sketch 2, and then they get a window. Well, I don't want that. Okay, I don't want another sketch. I want to finish what I'm doing. So to get back, come down your directory tree, find your sketch 1. Notice it'll highlight your lines with an orange saying this is what you're then pick. It gives you a kind of a preview. Then right click, and you have to be a little picky here, okay? There's 2 boxes. One has the features of the sketch. So feature is what makes up a sketch. In this case, it's lines. It could be circles, it could be polygons. But right now we just have lines. And then there's a second box above, and that's where you want to go. So there is a hide and eyeball that makes your lines so you can see them or not see them. And then you go up, there's one that says edit sketch. If you click on edit sketch, that puts you back into your sketch mode. Okay, so be aware of that if you get kicked out, that you have to edit the sketch to go back in. Now, when I'm back in my drawing, I've got a 2.5. I'm good with that. This one also is 2.5, but I do not want another dimension. I want a constraint. Okay, so what I'm gonna have you do is, again, no commands active. Select the line on the left that's correct. Then I want you to select the line on the far right also. You don't have to hold any keys down. So it's got vertical number 5 there. Go ahead and click on the other line on the other side. Now, are they both blue? No, but it switches to side that's vertical number 4. Now, if you hold your control key down and select the first one, now you have lines 1 and 9. So there are constraint numbers and there are element numbers. So in this case, I've got line 1 and line 9. So I know they're in the sequence. And then I look at existing relationships. There's not a relationship between these. They're not, there's nothing about them that's the same other than that they're vertical. And that's not a strong enough relationship to hold them together. Okay, so what I do have is other relationships I can add to these. And you can pick lots and lots of different things, but you want to make sure you're controlling which ones you're using. If I put an angle line in here, that would be kind of awkward. It would not be, first of all, it's not vertical, and it doesn't need to be the same length. So if I come down now to the add relationships, one of those is equal. So just click on the equal, and now both lines are the exact same size, and they always will be now. So if I go ahead and get the green check mark, and I change my value here, my dimension, to do that, I just double click on the dimension. If I say I want that to be 4.5, then both lines will change. Or I can double click again, and I can take it back to 2.5, and they will both change. So we're adding constraints to control and diminish or reduce errors. So the more of that we can do, the better. And so adding constraints is a really important aspect of making sure your drawing has precision to it. Okay, we're going to do that again with another set of lines. So again, no command or escape out to make sure you're clear. I'm going to select the topmost horizontal and the control key and select the other topmost horizontal. And I'm going to add my camera here, two more constraints. I would like those to be equal and collinear. Collinear means they're along the same plane. So collinear and equal. Now I'm going to get this little dotted line in here with the collinear. That means those lines will always align together. They'll always be on the same drawing plane. Okay? So collinear makes things stay at the same level with each other. Equal gives them the same size. Once you have that done, go ahead and hit the check mark. And things are looking good now. So the rest of my fixes I need to do with my dimensions, my smart dimensions. Okay, so if we remember from our drawing, we have a part that is 9.33, and that was across the edges at the top. So I'm going to do a smart dimension. I'm going to select the first line, that's vertical line that's black, and that's going to go to the next vertical line. So right on over to this point. Notice it'll highlight orange before you select it. And I'm going to bring that value up. And this value needs to be 0.933. Oh, we got another twister. Okay. So I turn the smart dimensions off. And I'm going to take this endpoint and slide it back where it's supposed to be. So I'm controlling my shapes and sizes. Okay. Now when I change, so I get that where you can see it. So I did that bad again. Got this zoom thing in my road here. If I change this, notice the other side's in change as well. So whatever I do on one is now affecting the other. Okay. We like that. That's a good thing. So I got 0.933 from first to second. So this is line 1. This is line 2, line 3, line 4. Line 1 and line 4 are now being used together. The next value we had was in the middle here, and it was a real small one, and it made it so it was easy. It was 0.69. I'm not going to do lines this time. When I do my smart dimension, so far I've just had you pick a line, pick a line, and pick a line. We're going to do points. So this one's a little more precise. So I activate the smart dimension. I want to go from this endpoint. You get yellow, an orange yellow dot, and I want that to go to this endpoint. Now, there's a couple things to watch with here now. Because I'm doing points, that means I could do an aligned dimension. I don't want that, and I don't want this. See, as you move your cursor, it's going to determine where you're placing that value. I want it to come up and be in alignment with 0.933. So no, no, yes. Okay, and it's just where you put your cursor. Now, if I'm going up in the right direction, once I hit the left mouse button again, it wants the value. In this case, it's 0.69, and enter. Okay, now by doing that, I'm getting things to be a little bit better on this view, but this side's not looking so wonderful. Okay, it's kind of falling apart a little bit. And I need to put another value in, another dimension value. So this angle is now exactly what it needs to be. I don't need the length of this little guy that's horizontal here. It's not needed because I know I can do the 0.933 minus 0.69 to get that value. And so because of that, I'm going to let that stay and let that be all I need. I do need to have the depth here and the height. I have not put the height of this object. And if you remember, the entire base from bottom to top was 3.5. So I'm going to go ahead and put that smart dimension in. I'm going to go from the bottom horizontal all the way up to the topmost horizontal. Then drag that off to the side and type in 3.5 after I place it. That's to change things a lot. Okay, so now things are getting a little weird. My right side is struggling a little bit, and that's fine, but I'm getting more and more black lines. I'm up to 4 black lines now. 5, I actually have 5 black lines. I'm halfway done. That's a good thing, okay? All right, now the next thing I need is the depth of this slot. And if you remember, this line lined up with this endpoint. So another smart dimension. They use the inside line here. And if I pull that off to the side, and then I make it a value of 1, now it all fits where it's supposed to be. So let me talk about what I did there. I gave it the overall height before I placed this. Because if I'd made this 1 and then the height, I might have adjusted things so they weren't parallel. And so the order in which you select things does matter. You want to make sure things are selected in a logical methodology that works for it. Okay, so things are getting better. I do need to fix a few more things here, and I'm going to do that. We got that set to equal. This needs to be equal to this. So I'm going to turn up my smart dimension. Just click up here and turn them off. Or you can hit the green check arrow, or you can do an escape. All that works just fine. All right, so I want this line, control key, and this line. So anytime to pick more than one object, use the control key. And I'm just going to set those equal. And then hit the green check mark. Now, this line is still not black. And that should be going, wow, well, what's wrong with that line that it's not the same, okay? Well, one thing is I haven't set the width of my object yet. And so I want to be able to do that. And so that's our next thing, is the overall width of my part. And so let's go and see if I remember that. That was 2.875 is the width. So smart dimension, left line, right line, bring that up above, 2.875. That's what we're going to type in there. Oh, we hit enter, excuse me. Oh man, look at that. I am all twisted. We got some questions. Let's take a pause here. Ponder my twisted lines. See where we're at. Okay. Any questions before I untwist this? So I just gave the overall width. Notice I put in 2.875, but it automatically rounded 2.88. That's because my decimals are set to 2 and not 3. So it automatically rounds for you, which is okay for right now. We'll get into that more. Uh-oh, microphone's dying. That's weird. Let me figure out how to fix that. See if I can. I'm gonna just do a quick few settings here. Hopefully hopefully you can still hear me okay. Yeah, I just did a couple of adjustments there. Try and get the mic a little closer to me. Maybe that'll help change my angle here a little bit. And so we can hear you better, or you can hear me. And I'll probably go ahead and put a headphone on next class and see if we can make that better. Is that better? Can you hear better now? I did a few adjustments. So what I was saying is that your setup, your program is set to 2 decimal places. Oh, okay. Okay, so I am, when you put in your values, if they're rounding up, we're only doing 2 decimals right now. And those 2 decimals will be sufficient for what we're doing. Okay, again, I have a twisted area. So I'm going to turn the smart dimensions off. And then use my roller button on my mouse. And I'm going to zoom in on that. And in this case, now we have things drawn. When you roll the button towards you, you zoom in. When you push the button away, you zoom out. So I'm going to zoom up on my area, and it zooms on the cursor. So wherever your cursor is where you're going to zoom. Okay. And what I need to do is I just need to grab this endpoint again, this grip, and I need to try and untwist it. And that's going to be So just, I mean, it might be picking the right endpoint will get you there. So I'm just going to untwist that view. So it's set. Now, if I'm looking at these, I cannot set this side equal to this side. That doesn't work because it would twist inside out. So I need to come up with another way of constraining everything to be the right size. And that constraint is what's important. So this value here had a limit to it. There's a range on it. It could be like 1.05 to 1.15. I don't want to put that kind of tolerancing in there. Okay, so let's take a look at what I do know. I do know that I've got a midpoint, and if this changes, then this line needs to be lined up to the midpoint. So what I would like you to do is grab the vertical line that's in this slot and just slide it. Okay, just kind of adjust it a little bit. Doesn't matter if you go like all the way over here or slide it so it's just over here. Just don't put it on top. Don't do this. Keep it gray and just leave this kind of where it's at here. Okay, I want you to go up to your line command. And in your line command, there's an arrow. So we're going to take and hit that down arrow. You have three types of lines. You have a regular line, and you have a center line, and you have a midpoint line. Want to select center line, and we're then come and bring our cursor along this little horizontal guide. You'll find that there's a dot at the endpoints, and if you scroll along, you'll find a yellow square in the middle of that line. I want you to select that middle square. So we've got the center line coming off it. Now, in SolidWorks, the center line will never print. It's a non-print line. So you can draw as many of those as you want. They don't print. Now, the other end of that center line, you then put to the midpoint of the base horizontal, the very bottom line. So just go straight down. It won't necessarily be straight, but find that. So you go in yellow square to yellow square. And then right click and select. Now, hopefully, what you see on your screen is a slanted line, a line that's not straight. I want you to put a vertical constraint on that line. So again, no commands active. Select the center line and force it to be vertical. As soon as you do that, and because we have an equal value on this top horizontal, we've now constrained the entire top of our base drawing. It's completely constrained now. So all of your lines, all 10 lines should be black at this point. Break line. No, the center line is not a break line. It is literally the center line is used to add constraints to an object. We can use it to help keep things aligned. It's not a fold line. Oh, they need a bathroom break. Okay, sorry. I thought it was a break line. Yeah, let's go ahead and let's give them 10 minutes. So if they'll come back at 8 minutes after 9, and we'll take a little break there. So that'll be great. So let's do that. Let's take a break. We'll do a 10-minute break and be back at 9:08. Okay, well, thanks for reminding me about the break. I tend to forget you need those once in a while. What we're looking at now is how to go about finishing out the really tough parts. We have that little archway at the bottom and a hole in the middle of this for that pin that goes into there. So, whoa, that kind of got crazy. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with an offset. And like I told you, there's an offset in every CAD package, every single one of them, and makes it kind of easy. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up here across the top of your screen. You're going to find, as you move up over, you'll find offset entities. It's a pretty important part of the program, so it gets a larger button than some of the other minor elements it can do. Offset entities is kind of a nice one because just like in AutoCAD, it saves you the time of doing math to figure out distance and where things need to be placed. So if we go ahead and activate offset entities, if we look over here on the side, the left-hand side panel, you're going to see that first it wants to know what's the distance that we're going to do. Okay, well, the full distance on this is 5/8. If you remember correctly, it's 5/8 of an inch. The decimal equivalent to that we had you look at is 0.625. I almost put a 16th in. That would have been really bad. It's 5/8 of an inch. Now, SOLIDWORKS is kind of nice, and you can put in the decimal, or you can type in 5/8. It does both just fine. It converts very well. In fact, this little box that you're typing in, you can even put in a plus and put in another value and a minus and a divide, and it's a calculator. It does everything for you. But we just need 5/8 right now. Okay, now if we look at our options below that, and this is, it'll add the smart dimension for you. So you don't have to come back and do that. So we put in the distance and we'll then let it add the dimension. I always add the dimension so I can change it later if I need to. If you don't, then you have to add it and it's just more work. And we don't want to do more work. We want to do it as simply and easily as we can. And see if we can get things looking at there. So 5/8 is where we're at. Now, we're not going to do chain. Chain means that whatever lines are connected, they will all be offset. So take chain off. We just want one, we're going to do one line. And then we've got this bidirectional. That means it's going to do two ways at the same time. Go ahead and put that check mark on. Now let's see what that's going to do. By seeing it, then we understand it. So if I bring my cursor now over to my center line that I did right down the middle, and I click on that, let's look at what's happening here, okay? It's set for 5/8. It's going bidirectional, so it's taking this center line and going 5/8 to the left and 5/8 to the right. So we need to change that. We need to change that value from 5/8 to 5/16. And when we change that and we click anywhere in the white area, or you hit enter, notice it's now 5/8 completely across. So we can do a lot with one command, and we can see it happening before we commit. So we may not like butter brickle ice cream. It looks good, but then we see Play-Doh, and that looks a lot more fun. So we go with Play-Doh instead. So when we look at something and we can make a better decision about it as we make our designs, then we're more likely to get a successful result. So this is where I want it. We're going to do 0.3125, which is 5/16, bidirectional. We're doing one line, so that's why you do not have the chain, and then select the green check mark. And there's our line. And let's go here. So here's our lines. There's our dimensions. We can kind of move them around a little bit, and we have that in place. All right, sweet. All right, now that's our only bi-directional we're going to do today, which is fine. It makes it easy. The next thing we're going to do is we'll do another offset. We're going to take the bottom horizontal line up a distance of 0.81. Remember that value, that 0.81 value? So that's what we're going to do next. So I'm going to do offset entities, change the value to 0.81, turn off bidirectional. So we're not doing bidirectional anymore. Select your bottom. So it's exactly like what we did in AutoCAD. We're doing the exact same thing. It's still a 2D drawing at this point, and we can do it exact same. So then take the bottom line. I can go up or down, depending on which way you put the cursor. You also have reverse, so you can reverse it over here. It's a toggle. We want to go up. So now we have, oh, hi, Sarah. Thank you for being here. You're going to save me. So now you have a line 0.81 above the baseline. We'll see if we can get some sound going for you guys, make it a little easier. We're going to find out just how technical we can get. And I'm going to talk so Sarah can tell when the sound comes across the top. I hope you find that SOLIDWORKS is a little more user-friendly than AutoCAD, even as old as AutoCAD is, and as user-friendly as it is, SOLIDWORKS is just a little slicker. It's got a little bit more pizzazz to it, I think, even though it's really the same stuff. It really is. All righty. Now we're going to do our circle the same way we did before in here. Maybe not. Maybe we'll switch it up a little bit. But our circle tool is something we need to learn how to use as well. And we want to make sure we get it in the right place. And so when we did our drawing in AutoCAD, I kind of got some volume back on my end. That's kind of nice. When we did the drawing in AutoCAD, we drew the circle and then we moved it into position. And while that was nice, I think we've got sound going again, maybe, hopefully. Got head shaking. That's always a good thing when there's heads bobbing. So when we did it in AutoCAD, we ended up having to move it down from the quadrant to the right position. Let's go ahead and go to our circle tool and go ahead and hit that little down arrow to the right of it. And we're going to do a perimeter circle. Okay, a perimeter circle. In other words, we do tangent, tangent, tangent is what we're actually going to do. So select perimeter circle. And then work down in this area. I want 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines. And I got to kind of position that to where I want it to be. So that makes my circle the right size, but I need to position it. So go ahead and just place it anywhere. So in this case, I did not have to put in any numbers. I just picked edges. Okay, now just place it. It's still not in the right area. It's not exactly right, but it's the right size. And I didn't have to really think about that size, which makes me happy. Now, so go ahead and check that off. And now this circle has elements to it, but I want it to be in the right spot. I want it to be there so they're connected. A tangent, I need a tangent point. So if you will, with no command active, select your circle, hold your control key, and select the horizontal line. And we look at that, and we look over at our side, and it's not giving us a way to connect those. We can do vertical, we can do horizontal, we can do fixed. And we see that we're tangent, but we did not get a good tangency created when we did the 3-point circle. So we need to find a solution for how to make that work better, and so that we have it exactly where we want it. So what we're going to do is we're going to close out of this, escape out. if I move that circle down, and if you grab an edge, you'll find that it doesn't want to move. So let's go closer. There's a little dot, which is the center of the circle. You can use that to slide it down. So we get to where we want it to be. And now it says, we should get an error message when you do that. The automatic relations inferred by this operation would overdefine the sketch. They will not be added. So what it's telling me, and when you get an error like this, you get them quite often actually, because you're manipulating the creation process. So what it's telling me is that I've broken the connection with the horizontal line. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Now when I look at that, if I click the circle, Control key and the line, and I want to add a relationship there, I'm not quite close enough for it to connect. So how do I get those two together? Well, if I grab and drag, turn that circle off, select the circle, and I want to drag it back up, nice and easy so they touch. And now say it's overdefined, okay? So now once I get the message back again, I've fixed that connection. So now they're connected. So it's a little bit of a, you gotta be a little patient with it, but that's if you do it with the 3-point circle, the perimeter circle. I'm gonna delete this circle now, and I'd like you to do the same, and we then do it a different way. So if I select that circle, it's going to tell me a little bit of information about it. Some of it good, some of it bad. What it does tell me over here before I delete it is that my radius is 0.3125 or 5/16. We already kind of knew that, right? It's what we did for our offsets. So when I go ahead and hit my delete key now, and the circle's gone, I realize I've got 2 lines and a bar that I can do something a little bit more with, okay? Because if I've got all the information, why am I adding more to my drawing than what I need? If you come over to your drawing area, underneath the ellipse is the sketch fillet. This works just like the fillet in AutoCAD. So we go ahead and select. Now, if you hit the down arrow, there's a chamfer. And a chamfer is a little different. It's just a beveled edge to something, whereas a fillet rounds the edge. Okay, so both of those are kind of similar, but I want you to make sure you're on fillet. It's going to ask you for a radius. The default is 0.1, whereas in AutoCAD, the default is 0. So go ahead and put in 0.3125. Make sure you get that decimal in there. And that will help a lot on there. And then when they come back over to our part, I'm going to select the horizontal line and a vertical line, and the horizontal line and a vertical line. Now you can't do them both at the same time because it's trying to figure out your math. So we get one side, and I tried to do the other, it says, that's too much math, I can't handle it. I'm not that smart. Okay, so go ahead and check that part off, and we start to round that. Then go ahead and do the second side, and this is say can't do it. Why it can't do it is this. You've used up every bit of that 0.3125. There's nothing left to do the math with. You're left with those empties. So we go, well, geez, silly machine, that's crazy. That's when we use a mirror. So I'm using the elements that I've drawn and not adding, but I wanted you to know how to use the perimeter circle, and this is a good way to show you that. So I need this arc on this side. Let me show you 2 ways of doing that. One is a little more fun than the other. The one that's straightforward is a mirror. So we do mirror, you select the entities to mirror, that'd be the arc, and then make sure it's on copy, and then what are you going to mirror it around? So this is the line that we had to offset to do the mirror. That would be the center line. That will do it just fine. that, hit the green check mark, life's good. It's a little over constrained. I'm okay with that. It's because I've got this line here. I'm going to undo that. Control Z is undo, just like in other programs. Here's the one that I think is a little more fun. If you go to trim entities and just turn that on, you get a whole bunch of trim options. Well, one of those is called power trim. And a trim is not always just a trim. Sometimes it extends. So if I come over to the circle and I highlight it while it's floating over, and I hold my left mouse button down and drag, it'll come all the way over. And I can just extend that arc. So now I'm not doing a mirror, I'm just extending my arc to a semicircle. And then I can switch to trim to closest, and I can take out these lines that don't matter. And the trim to closest doesn't need the lines to have cutting edges. It just needs to be removed. Okay, so that's two ways. You can do the mirror and then remove the lines you don't need, or you can use the trim command and do that. And I bet we're still in blue. And the reason we're in blue is we don't have a distance for where this is positioned. We have one here. I deleted the other one when I did my trim, so that's why it's not as clean. So while I'm in the trim mode, I might as well open it up. And again, like in AutoCAD, when you float over it, what's going to be cut is highlighted in orange. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that. And now, if these stay blue, I'm okay, because I know my numbers are right. If you're really worried about them not being black, you can add more constraints, but I really don't need them because I do know the radius based off this side, and so I'm good. If you want, you can do a diameter, but you're good. Okay, one last circle to do. This is going to be, again, circle command, do the center radius circle, and this one's going to be right on that center line we drew. Now, when I float over it, notice that yellow square in the center. Do not put your circle there. If you put it there, we won't be able to move it into the right position. So you can put it above, you can put it below. It will just kind of point that pencil to the line and left click and drag out that circle. Really quick and easy. And our distance on there was 1.06, and the circle was 0.255 in size. So we're going to use Smart Dimension. Yay, Smart Dimension. First, I'm going to pick the horizontal line. I've got two now, doesn't matter which. And I want the center of that circle. I want that nice orange dot. Oh man, am I good at what I do? That's exactly right. It looks right, but when I place it, it's actually being rounded. I'm pretty close, not exact. I still never trust yourself. So 1.06, make it exactly right. Then still in the Smart Dimension mode, I'm going to pick the circle, and it knows that a circle is a diameter. So I put in decimal 2 point, oops, got to place it first, and then 0.255, enter, and I can now turn off my Smart Dimensions. Okay, my drawing's now done. Now, notice a couple of things here, please. This will help you as you anticipate what's going to happen. So my drawing is done. What took us 3 days in AutoCAD, we've done in just a little over an hour. I have a light gray and a dark gray area. The reason for that is I have two closed perimeters within this feature set. What that means is they can both be treated separately in the process, but we're ready to make a 3D model. And that's where we've been waiting for all day long. So I'm gonna wait just a second to see if anyone's got questions on what I just did, and if I need to repeat something or undo something and redo it, but we should be at this point. And we want, because we're about to create magic, because magic's cool. And just so you know, I am not sick at all. I am just making sure you guys don't, because of the rules of the world of 2020. We'll probably just do this, and then once I have been cleared completely, we'll be back to normal, which is good because we like being present. And but at least we have technology, and we just flip around. Okay, any questions? So I'm hoping that by drawing this in AutoCAD first, this was a little easier. And so you know what's gonna happen. We're gonna draw all the parts of the arbor press for the next few days. And so each day will be a different part. We might do 3 parts on one day. Some look kind of small. How do you make the part white? Okay, down here. All right, that's a very good question. So that means that what I have here is there's a dimension that's coming across here. So this black line you're seeing is actually a dimension line. It's this one right here. If I pull this all the way over to the other side, and this is one of the downfalls to putting the dimension that it crosses over an object. So if I pull it over here, I've got a line at top but not the bottom. But if I pull it over the other way, then it's this way. So I trimmed out these lines inside this archway. I just used the trim entities, and I selected the 2 lines that were there. But the dimension makes it look like there's still a dimension there, which is kind of, you get used to it. You'll notice the thickness of the line. So that dimension line is relatively thick to the object line. Remember we did our line weights in AutoCAD? This is part of seeing that, so that you can recognize the difference in those. But that's what happens. So I just use the trim entities, and I use the trim to closest, snipped, and took those out. Does that answer the question? Good offset. Okay, so the offset, we're talking about the sides here of the opening. So when I did this archway, okay, what we did there is we went into the offset entities. We changed the value from 5/8 to 0.3125. So it's 5/16. And you can do, remember, if we double the denominator, we cut the fraction in half. So I put in 5/16. I could do that. I could even do this. I could put in 5/8 and then divide that by 2, which is a crazy math equation, but SOLIDWORKS can do that. You can divide a fraction in SOLIDWORKS. It's that smart. And then we did bidirectional. And when you do bidirectional and you select the center lines become object lines when you offset them. And so that's where those 2 lines came from. I accidentally deleted the 0.31 dimension when I trimmed things out. So it would be 0.31 on each side. Does that help? To get this drawn, because the next part is kind of fun. It really is. It's really fun. It starts to change your world in ways you didn't know they could be changed. And all of a sudden you want to be an engineer, because engineers design really cool things, even though sometimes you have to do the math. All right. So actually he won the other one that showed the top of the arc right below this. Okay. So the height. Okay. Sorry about that. That's an offset. No bidirectional. The value on that is 0.81. And we just picked the bottom line and went up. So, and then before, that was when the line went all the way across. That's where that sits. Okay. Now, if you're worried about that line being gone, and for those of you who think, oh man, I can't get that exactly tangent, here's a trick. And it's probably a good time to show the trick anyway. I'm gonna mess it up, so bear with me. I'm gonna take this circle and pull it down. Now it's nowhere near right, okay? This is why we have center lines. And so if you mess up, there's so many ways to fix it. I'm gonna take a center line. I'm gonna start on the center line and just draw a horizontal line. Just like that, okay? Now, that's pretty easy. But and notice it ties. Now this constraint right here looks kind of like a perpendicular, but it's really a knot. So it's where two things are tied together. If I can do that, a center line to center line, I'm going to take that one off for a minute. Then I'm going to do another one from the quadrant of the circle and pull that left or right. Just make sure it's horizontal. Now, when I get down here, I've got a horizontal constraint, I've got a tangent constraint, and I've got a tie down constraint. So I've taken this center line and I've tied it to the arc, okay? And now I'm gonna come in with a smart dimension. And this is just brilliant. Center line, object line, make it 0.81. Well, that didn't do what is, I got the wrong line. I apologize, I did that wrong. I hit the wrong line. Center line, smart dimension line to object line. I got the dimension line, 0.81. Now it's perfect. I don't have to do the offset. I just have to get the arc in there anywhere I want and force it into what I want. I am controlling it. In other words, every piece of metal, wood, plastic is all putty, and I can just do whatever I want with it. And it's kind of cool, and it's fun, and it's perfect. Okay? So again, lots of ways to do it. The center lines allow us to do it. Allows us to tie onto things that otherwise we couldn't connect and make the connection. And we don't have to worry about deleting them because they're not going to ever print, and they cannot become a 3D object. So if I was to draw in centerline mode and just draw some off the side and a big old messy thing, I never have to delete that because it can never, ever, ever become a 3D model. It's just there and it won't affect anything. Okay, so center lines are really good that way. They're a lot. They're kind of like what we used to use when we drew everything by hand. If you drew things in blue colored pencil, then you can make a Xerox of it and it wouldn't copy. And so it's a good way of laying things out. A layout line is what we would call those. And so they worked out pretty good. All right, I think we're getting good. I know there's some help going on there. I'm ready to make the magic happen, folks. Let your teacher there know, and we'll change the world the better. Ask good questions. We got some time still. Boy, I wish I could see you guys. You gotta worry about getting some technology in there. When we send kids to Mars, this is how they'll be doing all of their lessons. For the 6 years they're on flight, and then the rest of their schooling while they're on Mars because they can't come home. That's a one-way trip. But yeah, this is how it's gonna be done. Cool stuff, huh? None of you can then go to Mars now. See if anyone's got any emailed questions here. Take care of those. All righty. Let me move the center circle up the y-axis. Okay, so your very best way to do that, like this guy up here, we're doing it with the smart dimension. So I'm going to take this smart dimension off. We're talking about this circle right here, correct? So if I take this dimension off, I'm just going to select it and then delete it. If you're not on, whoa, what? That's a scary. I got to fix that. Okay, so if your circle isn't drawn on, is it, let's see. Yeah, you're on the y-axis. You just need to move it. Is that right? So the smart dimension goes from that little plus in the center. So we want to get that. And then the horizontal point down below. And then you force in the point, the 1.06. And that moves it to the right position. So that's there. Okay. Now, you noticed how when I was moving this circle, my center was moving. That's a scary thing because that's what's kind of holding my top together. I mean, really, that is a really important line. So because I made that mistake, I'm now scared for you because, you know, that's how we do it. If you select that line, this is an example of where you would lock in the anchor and fix it. So now that cannot move. And once you do that, everything's gonna go black. Okay, except this little line here that's just an add-in. But that fixes the whole geometry. And so mathematically it's set. So if you're a little worried about that, the one vertical center line you have down the middle is the one line you could throw an anchor down and fix it. And that's a constraint. And again, you select the line and then just choose it from the relationship. So it's completely constrained. And someone had a big question because she went really fast. Okay, so this is hopefully found it maybe a little easier than all the typing you have to do in AutoCAD. SOLIDWORKS is working on a eyeball-driven interface where you look and it draws where you look. They're also working on another one that bases off of alpha waves. So you think it and it creates it. They're kind of trippy like that. So I guess the question I've got now is while we're asking questions, making sure you're all at this point because we want you to have a really, really good experience here. And that's always my goal is that we do things that hold your attention and get you to where you want to be. And then I'm going to really push it. So I've ordered all the parts for your lightsabers. I'm way excited. You're going to get to use soldering irons to fix your circuits. You're going to maybe do some resin crystals for your design, depending on how you want to do that. So let's see where our questions are at before we move on to the next phase of this. And you guys have done amazing. To be caught up with this, I'm mucho bueno impresionado. That's not even a word. I just made that up. But I'm way impressed with you guys. You guys are amazing. The ability to do this has been great, and I thank you immensely. All right, let's see. Trimming entities at the part. Okay. So you probably got the lines down the bottom, most likely, or the vertical lines going up. Oh, he's gonna type his own question. And it would be you. Cool. Haha. All right. So are you talking about this down here in the bottom? Where the lines went up? You know I'm recording you for all time and eternity. Yeah. Okay, so what lines are you trying to trim, man? Okay, I'm gonna throw some lines on here and let's see if we can guess what the gyrations mean. If I've got a line, 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 bunch of lines, okay? And in this case, you might have the vertical lines going all the way up. You got a horizontal line go across and one across the bottom. When you do trim entities, the one I use probably 80% of the time is trim to closest. And so when you have that on, you put your scissors right by the line you want to remove, and it takes it out. And so you can precision remove little lines that you don't want. Now on our drawing, that was this line here and here, because I had the center line, I had to trim that out. There's also the vertical line that came up and the vertical line that came up here. And I just trimmed them down to the circle. So I'm gonna do a remock of what that looked like for you. Maybe. Boy, it's good to see a student on the screen. So I'm gonna modify my drawing with the power trim. I'm gonna take this guy up. This one went up here. Are those the lines we're talking? I'm thinking so. Trim the empty part. Are there two separate? Okay, there are two separate state tests. There's one for Tech 1 and there's one for Tech 2. And I know you don't want to do them both, but I need the data because I need to show you guys are amazing at the end. So yeah, there's two. There's one in Mechanical Engineering Tech 1 and Mechanical Engineering Design Tech 2. So there are two. And then trimming these entities down, I just go to Power Trim. I select, trim, select, trim. Now I've got to come in and take this piece off. Notice the gray goes away if there's a non-connected endpoint. And we do that. And this, the gray's still gone. I'm all worried now. Not really. The reason the gray's not back is I left an extra endpoint up here. So when I trim that, this line, if I get really close, went just above and left an endpoint. So I'm just gonna go ahead and select and delete that one out if I can. And then I do. I want that one to go. So I should be okay with it. Yeah, I'm gonna be okay. I'm not gonna worry about it. It's not great. It will be in a minute, but because of how I just manipulated the drawing, it is there. All right, folks, we're gonna do 3D here, okay? If you are not ready to do that, someone jump in front of my desk and say stop, because we're about to go 3D. Okay, no one's running, no one's dying. Oh, I know why. I got goobers over here. So yes, there's those skill tests. Yeah, you do need to do them both. Again, you're not looking for a grade on those because I don't care what your grade is. Just go through them fast, and then it'll be good. No one's ready for 3D? Okay. Not one person wants 3D. Okay, well, I guess we'll just practice another 2D drawing then, and can we get it ready? Funny. All right, I think we then go ahead and do it because I'm ready. I like it. Oh, top circle again? Okay, here we go. So I'm going to delete it out of this one because that's pretty quick and easy. So delete. So that's gone, okay? So what I did is I went to the circle, use the center point radius circle. Find the center line. It should highlight yellow. Just bring your pencil down. Just don't hit this yellow square. Just anywhere on that line. I'm going to do it way up here this time so that it looks more dramatic. Big old circle to start with. There's a circle. Then smart dimension. And then give the diameter first. So I select the edge of the circle. So that is something kind of I didn't point out. When you do a smart dimension on a circle, don't pick the center point. Pick the edge of the circle. Bring out that. Now notice the circles. You can do it like this. You can do it like this. Or you can do it like this. It's all the same. Doesn't matter. Doesn't really matter. Place that. 0.255. Enter. And now that's the size of the circle. The next thing I need to do is location. So dimensions come in size and location. So that's a size dimension. That's a size dimension. That's a size dimension. Everything I've got so far is size dimensions. So I'm going to put a location dimension for the center of the circle. So I find the center point right there, pick on that, and then a horizontal line, left or right, doesn't matter. Bring that dimension out, place it with a left click of the mouse button, and I type in 1.06 and enter. And now it's right where I need it to be. Okay, one guy, give thumbs up so you can move to the next fun part, because I'm ready. You good? Okay, here it goes. Turn off your smart dimensions if you're still in there. We've been working in the sketch tab. Click on the feature tab. Sketches become features. Okay, now when we look at this, you have three options. You really only have one because the others you don't have enough information to do yet. You have extrude boss base and revolve boss base. We're going to work on extruding today. Extruding is like taking taffy and stretching it. Okay, it's really kind of cool. So go ahead and press extrude boss base. As soon as you do that, it's done. It's now got a 3D preview. There's an arrow you can drag to see about proportioning. Over on the left side is where you put the actual value in. So how thick does this need to be? Well, if we looked up your drawings, it needs to be 1 inch thick. So you can take this arrow and you can follow that measure, that virtual ruler, and try and line that up to exactly 1 inch, which is nigh impossible. Or come over here to where distance 1 is, type 1 and hit enter. And when you get the 1 placed in there, you hit the green check mark and it's done. Oh, that's so cool. So cool. That's solid. It's 2.6.1 C figure on canvas. That's a good question. Which assignment is that in? And which class? Is that in 1 or 2? Yeah, it's 2. Thanks. Okay. And what assignment is asking for that image? Yeah, see, information. I could shotgun it. Because you shouldn't. Oh, I think I know where you're at. Oh, line types. Okay. Oh, that 2.6.5 is that one you're talking about? The 2.6.5a? Oh, okay. Okay. Don't hurt yourself, dude. Brains are fragile. Okay. I'm going to email that to you because I did not give that to you. So I'll send that out for you today. Okay. So I'll send that to you. Sorry, my bad. I just got to unlock it for you. Thank you for letting me know. Okay. Cool. Thank you. You're amazing for finding my errors. I will get that fixed. All right. Okay, next thing we need to do here. Remember I told you we had a thing called a chamfer? And so you guys go in 10 minutes, right? 10. Okay. What we're looking at here, we're going to do one last thing and have you save this to your drive there at the school so we can pick it up next week. We talked about when I showed you the fillet, the sketch fillet tool, there's a chamfer that puts a beveled edge. When we work with machine parts, especially metal, you never want a 90-degree corner where someone's hand is going to be because it will cut them. And so what we want to do is we want to soften these edges around the perimeter of this base. Okay. And we then do that with a pretty, well, that was weird, a pretty even 1/16 of an inch at a 45-degree angle on there. And see, that's it. So you're still going to stay in the features tab for this. And if you come across the top, you're going to look and look and look and look, and you're going, what can we do here? You'll find the fillet. Okay. So across the features tab, find the fillet. It's next to linear pattern. And then there's a down arrow. Switch the fillet to chamfer. And then go switch to chamfer. And that's going to bring up a new panel on the left side. We'll then leave all the settings the way they are except for the size. The default size is random. It just randomizes out. So I want you to change that size to 0.0625. Okay, that's 1/16 of an inch, 0.0625. And then we're going to pick certain edges. And it's going to give you a preview of what happens as we do this. So I want to select, now you could pick a surface, so I'm going to show you what not to do. If I pick the top, and I want to put my full preview on, it's going to go around the whole thing. I don't want you to do that, okay? That's a face chamfer, so everything that's on this face is going to be done. So I'm going to right-click and clear that. Make sure you have your full preview selected if it's not on, and we're going to pick edges around the perimeter. So we're going to go not where the slots are, so I'm going to do the bottom two edges. I got face again. And I want just the edges. It's a little tricky at first as you get used to picking edges. The little one I got across the top, not down in the slot, across this top, and this one, and this one. So I'm not going into the archway, I'm not coming down into the slot, I'm just doing these sides. When you get that done, just check it off, and there's your chamfered edges. This is how you know it's the top of the part. It's also what will make sure that you're not cutting yourself on that. Usually these are made out of either cast iron or aluminum. Aluminum is by far sharper of an edge than what the cast iron is. And so it's really kind of tough. Okay, so we'll get that done and then save this. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Looks like there might be some questions happening. It is a little tricky at first. You can now move this around freely. It's a 3D model. You do that by holding the roller button on your mouse so you can look at it from every angle. Make sure it's what you want. We see the edges where we change direction, where tangencies occur, so you can make a good analysis. This chamfer just comes across the side and around on both sides. It's a real simple chamfer. Okay, just getting down to the end of that. Now, while you're looking around here, because hopefully you've got those edges picked, I talked about this next cube, which is, your display style. The top one shows edges, so that's like where I change direction, shows where things are at. The second one down takes those edges off, just smooths it, so it looks polished. I don't really like that because for me, it's hard to understand what's going on there. The next is a wireframe. So you can see what it'd be like in a textbook. It's yay. The one from the deck shows hidden lines. So you can see through the object like it's made out of glass. So you can see how the lines come together. And the third one, whoops, wrong screen. The third one takes that and just shows it as a glass block. So you have different ways of looking at your part depending on what you're trying to understand and what you're trying to convey. But usually you'll find that the top one with the edges is where you'll be the most of the time. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you how to save this because we're right at 10 o'clock now. And we want to make sure that we don't have anybody late. When you save your drawing, you need to do up here at the top is just like in Windows. You have your home, your new, your folder to open something, and the little computer disk that's been obsolete your entire life. None of you have ever seen one of these, most likely. They're 3.25 quarter-inch floppy disk. They've been gone forever. But when you click on that to save it, it's going to pop up and say, what do you want to call it? Because right now, it's a part. And yours should be part 1. I know a couple of you had to restart, so maybe on part 2. Again, go into the directory, find your student number. That's the drive you need to save things in so they don't get deleted. I'm trying to get the lab updated to a little bit newer version of the software. But you're just going to call this base, just like we did with AutoCAD. Now in AutoCAD, it put the extension .dwg after it. SolidWorks is going to put .sld, solid, PRT, part. So it's a solid part. That's the extension to look for, okay? Now, you'll also give you a .prt file as well. They're the same thing, okay? Part files. And that's what you need to look for as you work that. Then you just need to go ahead and save that. And I need to find a place to save that since I'm not on my connector. So I'm going to do that right now. Folder. So I'm just going to stick in this folder right here, call it base, and hit save. So you want to make sure you get it saved before you go. And we'll pick up on this. We have one more thing to put on this, and it's going to take us a little bit more time than we have, and that is the hole that goes in the front of this. There is a bolt that threads through here that we need to put on this drawing. And we're going to be doing that probably, we'll probably do that next time we meet. We'll put that on, and then we'll then do the column drawing. So then the base, then the column. So if you want to look ahead and look at the column drawing, that'd be great. We'll then do the same setup again until I get past this separation anxiety stuff we're doing. But like I said, I'm not sick. I just haven't been around someone that was, and we're just making sure you're not. So just try to be safe and keep everything good. All right, let's do questions. Again, if you have a question you want to run over the keyboard and type in your own question, I'm good with that. Feel free to do that. Also, if you would like, that might make it a little easier for some of you. I'm using the Zoom link that's in the announcements for the class. So if you wanted to connect to Zoom next time you come into class, and then just split your screen and put SolidWorks on one half and Zoom on the other, you could do that if that helps you to see things better. Whatever makes this easier for us to work through, at least that makes it an option for you. But I'm just using the same Zoom link I use for the distance students. This is being recorded, and I will post that to Canvas this evening so that you can look through it and watch it out. I'm going to open a new file here real quick. Again, I can have multiple files open, but while I'm waiting to see if you have any questions, I'm just going to show you one thing that kind of really got me excited about my profession when I was in college. We had a company come in, and they did a sketch, and they just drew a simple little thing. Wasn't too complicated. They drew a line, and then they came over, and they did, a little roundness to it, and a little line. They picked that line up, and then they came down a little bit. Then they did a little flare out, which I didn't understand why, but it didn't matter, because then they came over, and then they brought it down quite a bit. So I embellished what I remember, and then we closed. Then they did this. Now, this isn't anything now if it's not closed. And then they did a little trim work. They did we're just gonna do an extend power trim. So I just extend this down, extend this one over, and then trim the closest. Again, you don't want any extra endpoints. Well, then they got this. They said, you know, wouldn't it be nice if our world was instant and the things we conceived as being important were done? And they talked for a few minutes about this new software they were developing. The company's name was ROK. They were an architectural firm. And then they went in and said, look, if we can do a revolve around any shape and create our own thumbtack in less than 30 seconds, can't we do more with what we're conceiving as being things we need? And that blew me away. They drew a thumbtack in a 1-hour seminar, and I was hooked. And so I'm hoping that seeing a little bit of 3D kind of gets you a little bit thinking about what you can make and what you want to make. Because there's gonna be opportunities for you to do your own free design. I've got assignments galore, but when you start coming up with things on your own and say, can we make this? Can I print this? The answer is always gonna be yes. If you've got something that you've created that you want to make a 3D print of, the answer is always yes. And I encourage you to really see what you can develop, what you can design. All right, we're getting close to where class is going to end, if I'm remembering the bell schedule right. Are there any questions you guys have? And I'll get that 2.6.1 file to you before you get back to your home schools. I'm going to do that right as soon as this class ends. So we'll see. Where's my favorite student? I've got lots of favorite students. All 32 of you. All my favorite students. Oh, wow. That's great. That's great. Now, am I right? Is that they leave at 10:10, right? I haven't got my bell schedules down yet. I'm still learning. It seems like the right time. They'll probably say yes, even if it's no. Okay, yeah. All right, so that's got about 3 minutes, guys. Hey, again, help out so we can sanitize those stations, put those keyboards up underneath the monitors a little bit so tables can get wiped down. And then so you know, I've got engineered water there now to wipe the tables off with. It's in the bottles that are clear. And it's a little easier and a little less smelly to wipe things down with. But I'm sure you will be fine. Hey, you guys are great. I appreciate it. And we'll see you soon, but we'll probably be in this mode for a couple of days. Make sure you guys aren't in problem. It's kind of reverse. In March, you guys all left the teachers in the schoolroom and I decided to leave you. How's that? We flipped it. All right. And again, I'll get that drawing to you. I'll post it in the announcements so you can get to it. Probably the easiest way. If you have questions, again, you can schedule a Zoom meeting with me for tomorrow, or you can email me. We'll get you, and it'll be great. All right. I'm going to close this out. Have a good one, guys. Thanks for everything.